everybody, it is Steve, your friendly neighborhood lawn gnome. Welcome back to another episode of Stats, Trends, and Picks over here on That's Comical. And if you are watching and it happens to be a Wednesday, happy new comic book day. Well guys, we've officially finished November, which means we only have one more month until we wrap up another year of comic book statistics based on my preferences here. And I am really curious to see where we're going to end up based on what has happened over the last couple of years since I started venturing back into comic books, especially, in particular, current and new comic books. So let's begin and see what happened in the month of November. It was a good reading month. I definitely will say that there were very few moments where I really said to myself, oh my goodness, this is a really crap read. But it was another very strong month for DC and Image. And when you take a look at the numbers, once again, just like in October, we had Image just behind DC by one. And we also seem to see that the original conglomerate is pretty much where it has been in the entirety of 2023. We seem to have an average of 5 to 6, and sometimes a little bit higher, sometimes a little bit lower, but it seems to me that we have gotten anywhere from 5 to 6 on average, which is not terrible, though I'm really curious to see what's going to happen with the others come December, because 3 of the titles that I was reading officially ended their miniseries, and they were all from Independence. 1 from Dynamite, and 2 from Boom Studios. So let's see what happens. And Marvel is definitely showing me that they are just not picking up the slack, because they started off pretty strong at the beginning of the year, and after August, they just started to decline. So when we take a look at the percentages, yeah, look at that. Almost 40% of my reading came from DC Comics, and over 35% from Image Comics. And then, of course, when we take a look at the charts, it is really starting to show me who is ahead of the pack and who is lagging behind. Take a look at where Marvel, DC, and Image were at the end of January 2023, and now take a look at the separation. We literally have like 2 sides of a coin here. We have the very successful with Image and DC pretty much neck and neck, and ironically the other and Marvel are pretty much neck and neck, but they're all the way at the bottom. So, how did we fare this past month in regards to my specific predictions? Well, we started off, believe it or not, because I didn't actually talk about this on Twitter, towards the middle of November, being a 5 new comic book week month, I actually was going 3-0 with my predictions. And it wasn't until we got to the 4th week around Thanksgiving when things changed. Not drastically, though. We definitely saw my picks that I thought were going to come out on top in my honorable mentions on Twitter, which is important. But we still got some pretty interesting surprises. So let's take a look at how I did. So in the first week of November of 2023, I knew that this was going to go to Image Comics and Rick Remender's The Sacrificers issue number 4. Every single time I finish an issue of The Sacrificers, I am left with a very uneasy feeling, in a great way. The writing and the artwork and the story of The Sacrificers is top-notch. It's brilliant. It leaves a lasting impression. And right now, I'm saying this, guys, this is the top pick for me in 2023. And I'm really looking forward to issue number 5 in December. For the second week of November, of course, it was going to go to Daniel Warren Johnson over at Image Comics, Transformers issue number 2. Wow, I am just so pleased with how the Energon universe is unfolding now that there's Transformers and Void Rivals, and we haven't even gotten to the G.I. Joe miniseries yet. But once again, if you love the Transformers, you're going to love what Daniel Warren Johnson does with these characters, but he's definitely got in the back of his head that he's writing a Transformers comic for people that grew up with the Transformers, and for good reason. There is a moment in this issue where I had to pause and say to myself, whoa, that actually just happened. Holy shit. I'm not going to tell you guys what it is, but I will definitely let you know that it involves one of my favorite Transformers villains, one of my favorite Decepticons, and I was shocked by what I saw, only to say to myself that I am so excited for issue number 3, and saying that this is definitely one of the best 2023 releases. For the third week of November, I gave it to the 5th and final issue of Mark Millar's Big Game over at Image Comics. This was such an amazing miniseries, and what made me so happy about this series is I came into this story knowing who Mark Millar was. I read many of his work over at DC and Image and Marvel, but I didn't really know much about his Millarworld comic books outside of the only one that I have read, which is the newest one, The Ambassadors, a great read, and I knew a lot about characters that were featured in his stories that became film adaptations, like Wanted and Kick-Ass and The Kingsmen, but I never read any of those comic books, and I got into this story not even missing a beat. I got familiar with everybody. I loved the story. It was action-packed, some of the best action that I have seen on comic book pages, and a great story to go with it. And what did this do? Not only did it make me more excited to, hopefully, an extension to the Ambassador series, but it gave me incentive to actually go and pick up some old Millarworld back issues. So I am now reading the very first hardcover trade of Kick-Ass. I am reading the first Nemesis series, and I'm also reading the Chrononauts series, because those were the characters that I really connected with when I was reading The Big Game. This was a great book, guys. I freaking loved it, and I'm really excited for what Mark Millar has in store with Millarworld next. Then I went into the 4th week of November 2023, and I originally was going to give it to Marvel Comics and The Hulk issue number 6 by Philip Kennedy Johnson, and this is definitely one of the best Marvel books right now. I loved this issue. It introduced us to a brand new version of Ghost Rider, but it just couldn't squeak out the win, and it went to DC Comics, and it went to Jeremy Adams, Jay Garrick the Flash, issue number 2. I am reading the Golden Age books, and some of them are great, and some of them are not so great. But Jay Garrick the Flash, I would probably say, is the strongest of all the Golden Age DC comics. I am having so much fun with this story. It's so family-oriented, so lighthearted, and once again, it really is a continuation of Stargirl and the Lost Children, which I loved dearly. I love Jay Garrick the Flash. I love the Flash in general, and I love all versions of the Flash. And getting this newest addition to the Flash family, Jay Garrick's daughter Judy, I'm loving it. Check it out, guys. This is a great book. It's only going to be 6 issues, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be worth your time. And for the final week of November 2023, I personally thought that it was going to go over to Image Comics and W. Maxwell Prince's Swan Songs issue number 5 of 6. This is his new anthology. I'm loving it, and this was a strong issue, but it didn't quite get there. It could have been my pick if it wasn't for one book that I really didn't pay too much mind for, but just wanted to grab it just because it was a big anniversary. My number 1 pick for the last week of November 2023 was Howard the Duck, issue number 1, the 50th anniversary special. This book was laugh out loud funny. This book had no means to take itself seriously. This was not supposed to be a landmark, earth-shattering moment. It was just supposed to celebrate the awkward, quirky character that is Howard the Duck and praise the cult following that this character has had for 50 years. I had so much fun reading this book. Chip Zdarsky headlined it, and I'm a big Chip Zdarsky fan, minus what he's currently doing in Batman. But I had such a good time with Howard the Duck, guys. Just, if you want a fun read, if you want to laugh, check this 50th anniversary one-shot out. It is great. So that was November 2023, guys. And we're now officially approaching the last month of the year. So what are going to be my predictions for December 2023? I'm just going to start off by saying there could be a possible first because of one specific title that is actually doing a current bi-monthly story. And we're going to start with the first week of December. And I'm starting off with Image Comics, The Sacrificers, issue number 5 by Rick Remender. This is a game changer, guys. Such an incredible book. And there's only 2 issues left until we wrap up the first story arc. I'm really hoping that it doesn't take Image too long to give us the second story arc, especially because of the fact that there are so many books in Image Comics that I have been reading that have taken very, very, very long hiatuses. 2 of them in particular are James Tynion's Department of Truth, which I'm dying to get back into. I have no idea when this book is coming back. And then, of course, there's also Echolands, which I am waiting to get the second and final story arc. And then there's the other book that I am hoping will happen because it's got to finish, and that is Crossover by Donny Cates. There's one more story arc. I'm hoping that these books continue soon. But right now, The Sacrificers is definitely the saving grace. It's keeping me engaged. I love this book. So for the second week of December, this is where I'm officially going to see if this possibly happens. I'm giving the top spot to Detective Comics issue 1079 by Ram V, and this time the current artist is John Alexander, who's a great artist. We're in the middle of a really interesting story arc, and I just want to say that ever since Ram V took over Detective Comics, I have been loving this title. It is a standalone. It brings the true gothic and dark atmosphere back to Batman that has been lacking for so long. Not just that, with a very, very deep, mind-blowing, engaging story. It's a slow burn. I just want to let you guys know there's really not too much action, but there's a lot of thought-provoking moments, and now we're in the climax of the story where Batman is about to be hanged in the public square. I'm not kidding. So that's why I am just so into this story. Ram V has been doing a spectacular job, and this could in fact be my top pick for this week, because Detective Comics has been showing up in my honorable mentions almost all the time. For the third week in December, I'm just biting the bullet. I'm just going to go with DC Comics, Jay Garrick The Flash, issue number 3, once again by Jeremy Adams. Loving this title. Loved the first 2 issues, and I'm just hoping that the momentum just keeps on going with this miniseries. It's fantastic. And for the final week of December, for the final week of 2023, I couldn't possibly be going towards a bigger, depressing moment. And that, of course, is once again over at DC Comics, Detective Comics issue 1080 by Ram V again. This is going to be the conclusion of the current story arc, and it's going to be a doozy from what I've been told. And then, of course, it makes me more interested in where is the story going to go from there, because this is not the last issue that Ram V is writing. He's definitely continuing on with the next story arc. My thoughts are he might, if he's able to, stick around with Detective Comics until issue 1100. That would be a big accomplishment for Ram V, because he's been around for a while, but he's still not as popular as he could be. And I think that Detective Comics is the title that really should be shooting him up to some of the top writers in the game right now. But I'm telling you, it's a different read, it's very standout, it's very unique, and it's not extremely action-packed. But I personally have been enjoying what he's been doing with Batman. I think he's been giving me one of the best versions of Batman that I have ever seen. And that is going to wrap up another month of Stats, Trends, and Picks, and that's also going to wrap up another year of Stats, Trends, and Picks. Thank you very much for sticking around, and I'm really hoping that this is giving you the incentive to go out to your local comic book shops and pick up some of the current titles from any company that you choose from. And I'm looking forward to another year of telling you guys how my comic reading is going. But until then, guys, hope you have a wonderful and safe holiday season, and I'll see you in the next one.